Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Andrea Johnson, Reiki Master, Teacher, and Practitioner, Energy Worker, and Spiritual Lifestyle Content Maker. Hi, if you are new. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to my vlog. In this series, I like to call it Conscious Coffee Talks. And this is where I like to help people expand their consciousness and just really honestly talk like I'm having a chit chat with a friend over a cup of coffee. We have half cap today because this is like my third cup. In this week's episode, I wanted to cover something that I've been seeing quite a bit, and I get asked quite a bit about New Age religion, New Age Jesus, New Age Christ consciousness, and honestly, I didn't really know what it was, so I had to Google it. Mr. Google says, if you aren't familiar with it, it's the New Age movement. I'm reading off of Google, by the way. It includes a wide range of ideologies that promote self-spiritually with the goals of personal growth, evolution, connection with the universe. It teaches that all roads lead to heaven and pushes spirituality apart from Christ. That's not right. So I think of it more as spirituality, and spirituality just becoming more common. But these practices have always been here. It's just a kind of a conglomeration of them. I want to go over just about this New Age, my thoughts about it, and where I came from in my background of growing up Christian-based faith, and where I really found my truth with God, where Christian-based faith kind of, in my experience, failed me, and which led me to more of a spiritual lifestyle. Hopefully this video will expand your consciousness. So with that being said, let's dive into it. I grew up Christian-based faith. I very much believed that God was a man in the sky. I very much believed that I had to live a certain way. I had to pray every day. I had to be a good person, or I was going to be condemned, or judged by the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to get into heaven. That's kind of what I grew up understanding, that I had to live a certain way, go to church. I had to be a good person in order to get into heaven. There are some things that I have issues with this kind of approach or this style of thinking. This idea that God was something outside of myself. It painted a picture that it was a person, and that's when you assign a noun to God, you're separating yourself from it. God is not a man in the sky. From my personal experience, God is an energy. It is everything. It's our existence. God is in every single thing that is creation. So how can you say that it's a man in the sky, what we would picture as like a human casting judgment? When you do that, you're actually putting God outside of yourself, and that is where I struggled when I first came into spirituality. Even though I didn't believe it at the time, I still held that belief when I embarked on my spiritual journey that God was something outside of me. When I started actually experiencing God as something in me, which was wild. Awakening that I was having as I was going through meditations and getting to know myself better, you start experiencing these things. So that took a little bit for me to wrap my mind around and unwire the programming that I had conditioned myself or learned, which is neither right or wrong, it just is. I was teaching myself that, but as I understood, when I saw God as something outside of myself, I was giving my power away to something else. I was looking to something for power, or thinking that God was going to save me, to answer my prayers pretty much. And it's not to say that you can't find strength in God, because you very much can find strength in God. I still do it to this day. Let go and let God, or give it to God. It's a form of healing. But when I remember praying or being in church or asking God for all these things, for all these healing, it very much seemed like it was begging. It felt like you were at the mercy of God, and it was at his will of being yay or nay that you were going to get it answered or not. And that's just not how it works. God doesn't play favorites like that. But it very much felt like it at the time. You were just at the mercy of it. And when you think of it like that, that's taking your power away. Or it's even to say that it's almost taking responsibility away from you. Because if you're praying for something, you're basically saying that you have no control over this situation, that you lack a certain thing, and therefore you will continue to lack it. That is one thing that the law of attraction or manifestation has taught me with the energy is your words are very, very important. Your intention is very, very important. I'll get more into that later. But when you're praying and asking and basically like at the mercy of God, that is the message you're sending out. And therefore that's what you will receive more of. Lack. It's not like a man in the sky casting judgment saying, you lived your life like crap, like you don't get this now.
No, that's the name of a champagne. No, terrible. These are all just terrible.
That's just not the way it works. That was where I had some issues. One of the things I had issues with was seeing God as something outside of myself when very much God is inside. I've experienced it as literally inside the human body. God is in everything. It can be a little hard to wrap your mind around. You are connected to God. You are made in the image of God. So therefore you are a piece of God, and therefore you have his intention, his heart, his consciousness. You have access to the information that is him, the connection that is him at all times. And that little voice inside of you is what is guiding you, your intuition, the soft whisper. That is God with you all the time. So when you're seeking help or answers from outside of you, you're basically telling yourself that you're not connected to God. So another thing, and I kind of touched on it before, of looking for God in external things. Christianity is taught by preaching, right? It's taught by words. And in the way that God communicates with you when you go through spirituality, you actually kind of learn that God communicates in all ways. And words are actually the worst form of communication. Words are deceitful, aren't always true. You can think about it as the way that you even talk to yourself in your head, the thoughts, the narrator going on in your mind. It doesn't always say nice things, right? When God communicates with you, or the universe communicates with you, from what I have learned in my Reiki practice and just the psychic work that I have done, the energy communicates with your five senses, and they're elevated on a spiritual level. So it's your seeing, which is your clairvoyance. It is your knowing, with your hearing even. It is your feelings, the emotions. So it is basically your sense is how God likes to communicate. And the favorites being the emotions. So it's the way that you feel. Emotions are really the key to communication with the spiritual realm, because emotions are energy. They're energy in motion. It is the purest form. So it is up to us to interpret how we feel. And this is where spirituality steps in, because it is all about how you feel and how you interpret God. It is how you feel about your beliefs. It's how you feel about your thoughts, your life, yourself. So that is to say that is the strongest form in which way God likes to communicate. Now, he doesn't always communicate that way. Sometimes it is by words, or sometimes it is by thoughts. But the surest knowing comes from the experience of God within and the emotion. To experience is to know. And when you're looking for God outside of yourself, you're not experiencing. And this is where I ran into issues with Christianity. Was it is taught by the book. And don't get me wrong, I read books all the time, but I take from it what I believe to be true, or I test theories. Now, you can do the same in the Bible, but when you are, going to church or doing study groups or whatnot like that, it's taught by word of mouth, right? So the preacher's up there preaching. You're getting a biased version of God. You're getting somebody's interpretation of the scripture, of the Bible, of the word. And when we look to the word for God, we're looking outside of ourselves. And therefore, when you look for words, all words are noises. They're the weakest form of communication and not our natural form of communication as human beings. As human beings, our first form of communication is energy. It's feelings. And you can read it off of people just by the way that you feel, because you feel their energy coming off of them in their field. Side note, words are just noises. They are to invoke certain frequencies within you. They hold certain frequencies and they are to invoke certain frequencies in you. Words are not always true. Those that speak it don't always speak the truth. It is up to the person to discern what is right and what is not by them. But when we look outside of ourselves and the preacher's talking, and you get his biasness, his interpretation of God or what that word is, you're accepting it as your own without experiencing it. To accept words is just to basically learn. Words just are noises that stand for feelings. They help you understand. Experience allows you to know something. When you experience God, you know God. You know your truth internally, and nobody can take that from you. Nobody can ever sway you from your truth. And we put so much emphasis on the Word of God, on the Bible, on the gospel, on Christianity, religion-based faith. We put so much into it that we forget to experience it. We just accept it as what we're being fed, and we're not really experience it for ourselves. And that's what spirituality is all about. It is about the self. It is about getting to know you and your relationship with God, your personal relationship with God, because each of us are individual essences. We're individual pieces of the same source. We all have different blueprints, and therefore we are going to experience different. Our truth is going to be different. We each think differently. We all have different strengths. We all have different life experiences. So why would one book have all the answers for somebody? It doesn't make sense. You're not going to agree with everything, but yet you just accepting the information almost like relieves you of responsibility for getting to know yourself. It's almost like you're looking for somebody else to tell you what to think, and that's really not God. That's not it. The message that I keep getting is, it's almost the same way as when people put down others for, using tarot or crystals or something. They're like, you're looking for God in external places, when religion is the same thing for Christian faith. You're looking to your preacher to provide you information. You're looking for the word of God in a book rather than to experience it yourself. And then you're accepting that information as true, when very much so I disagree with a lot of that in there from my own personal experience. And we'll get more into that later. There is a lot to be said about this when you're canceling out the way that your personal relationship and what you feel with God in you, you're missing out on the truth of it. And that is to say your life. You're basically being led, like a sheep. I'm gonna get so much hate for that. That kind of tied into my first, reason of why I'm not really a huge fan of religion is it's still looking externally for God, whenever I very much know so God is something within you. And my next point, the praying to God and asking for things. You're still looking for external healing, pretty much. You're basically putting the responsibility of either healing of something that you want, of your life not being the way that you want it. You're putting it on something else. You're giving your power away when you're the only one that is saving you. And the mere fact that you're even asking for it or begging for it, of what it usually felt like in church, you're almost at the mercy of God, when that is not how it's supposed to be. God is not a man in the sky casting judgment and choosing who he will and will not answer their prayer. You learn is when you pray with faith. You pray knowing so much that what you ask for, you receive. So it is already done. It is a level of faith, and that is where it takes it from you almost, when you're begging for something, praying for God to please help you, when help is already there. God would not leave you. He never leaves you, even though we can get a little bit more into this about the light and the darkness, or heaven and hell, but he is always with you. So to pray asking for help is to be without God. It is not having faith that, what you're going through right now isn't in your best interest, and therefore you just receive more of that lack of faith. So when you pray knowing that what you ask for, you will receive it, and you just have to let go of the expectations around it. You have to let go of when will this happen, or you have to let go of your doubt of it not occurring. To pray begging is to pray not having faith. It's counterintuitive to what we were taught when we were growing up. At least for me, a Christian-based faith, I was always taught to pray to ask for things, when indeed that was me saying that I was without God and did not trust him to give me said things in my life. So that's kind of another thing. And spirituality, it teaches you that, you already have everything. You ask, you shall receive, but you have to have such faith in knowing that it's like, if I pick up this cup of coffee, I know I'm gonna drink it. If I pick it up and I have the intention of drinking it, it's gonna happen. You should have the same intention when you pray. You pray knowing in your faith that it's going to happen. And that's where people have knowings, and that's where you can feel it internally, literally knowing is in your heart. It's not just a thought type thing, I know that's gonna happen. It's a feeling for sure. You just don't know how it's gonna happen. So that is where people will say, I just had a knowing, and lo and behold, it was true. So that's part of your psychic abilities. That is one thing that spirituality taught me, and one thing that when I developed my relationship with God, that's what I came to know as the truth. It is 100%. If you fully believe, and Jesus Christ tried to teach us the same thing, that we have the same abilities as he does. He was just such a Christed individual. His faith was so strong. He knew the energy. He was an ascended master, basically meaning that he could basically hold the frequency of God despite what anybody had ever done to him. But that was another thing that I learned that with spirituality, experiencing God within myself and knowing it within myself. To know God is to know your own mind. It's to know your own thoughts. It's to know your own feelings. Those things are God, all of it. None of it is wrong. And that is kind of what leads me into my next one, is darkness and light. Yes, duality, right and wrong, heaven and hell. Those are ideas. Yes, they are energies. Heaven and hell is an idea, and I don't necessarily agree with it. And that kind of ties into the casting of judgment. It just goes against everything of what God is and what we preach. It's almost calling counterintuitive. Why would you have an all-loving God and forgiving God and him cast you into hell for all eternity if you didn't live by the book of the word of God? It just doesn't make sense. Or you have to ask for forgiveness, or you have to accept Jesus Christ in your heart, which it takes on a different meaning to me now, because the heart is actually the portal of God, and you are Christ consciousness. Christ died for us in this knowledge to have, and I'll get a little bit more on that later, but it's not the way that the Bible spins it. Where I'm getting with the duality is, yes, our universe is, we have duality, we have light and we have dark, but it's neither good nor bad. There is no place, a heaven or a hell. It's all right here, right now. It's all happening right here, right now. And it's your conscious awareness of it. It's your expansion. And yes, there are dimensions. There are higher dimensions and there are lower dimensions. But I am 100% certain that we create hell in our heads. We create heaven in our heads. And to even go as far as saying with spirituality, like ascension, you're not trying to ascend anywhere. You're already the light. When you're telling yourself these things, you're basically telling yourself you're not God. You're not a piece of God when you are. So you're not trying to really go anywhere. You're not ascending. Light in the dark, it just is. It's neither good nor bad, but it's the way that we interpret it. It's us being logical and assigning, good and bad to emotions, to feelings, to actions. And vibrations really is what it is. And that is where we get our duality, pretty much. The light and the dark, the idea of heaven, the idea of hell, the idea of fear, and the idea of love. Fear and love are vibrations, and those are the only two things that are honestly really true. Every action is either made out of fear or it's made out of love. One we say is more God-based than the other. And in, religion teaches us, I don't even know what scripture it was, but I've heard it before, of God cannot exist where there is not light. It's true to an extent, but it is an illusion because there really is no darkness. God is the darkness, He is the light. You are the darkness, you are the light. It's everything. But it is an illusion. When you're in the vibration of anxiety, of depression, of sadness, of anger, of hate, when you are in the darkness or you're traumatized or something has happened to invoke these little vibrations within you, you feel without God. It is the illusion of this separation because the feeling associated with those energies is not godlike, even though it still is God, but it's an illusion that it's separating you from it. Now, God cannot exist with it per se. Love cannot exist with fear, because when you re-invoke love, when you find God again, when you connect to God again, when you remember yourself again, those vibrations cannot exist in the same remembering of love, of who you are. They dissipate and it immediately gets transformed into love. So that is where I feel that the interpretation comes from. God cannot be like in darkness, when really, from my own experience, this consciousness that is God was with you all the time. Even in your darkest hour, it's there all the time. It's watching you. It's not judging you. It's not doing anything. It's just watching. It's still with you. But it is the illusion that you feel without it. So when you're reminded of who you are, you get brought back to a place of love and therefore God, and then the darkness dissipates. But that kind of is my theory on heaven and hell. There is no such place as heaven. There is no such place as hell. It's all happening right here, right now, and it is just your conscious awareness. You can live heaven on earth every single day internally with just your mindset. You can live in hell every single day with just your mindset. I really feel like people with depression, that they're living in their own internal hell. People who live with such high standards and judge themselves so harshly live in hell every single day. So it is you is the only one who is judging you. God is not the one doing it, and not what we were told, pretty much. So you're thinking that you have to be, perfect or something of that nature to get into heaven. And then when you're not, and then you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm like gonna get judged by God, you're the only one judging yourself and invoking that on you. God doesn't care either way, because energy is neither right nor wrong. It just exists. In the grand scheme of the universe, why would we care? We're all going to the same place essentially when we're done here. You know what I mean? Like we're all like in this realm of foreverness forever. But with spirituality, we are actually taught, or I say from my own experience, when you lean into your darkness, you actually learn from it. You understand that these thoughts and these feelings, they're all God. And when you lean into the uncomfortableness, when you lean and want to learn from your darkness, that is when you find the light. That is when you find your strength. That is when you evolve and you grow, which is your soul's like desire. But when you don't lean into these things, the darkness, when you don't want to understand yourself in these thoughts, you shove it down and it gets trapped within the body. And then that's where you get deceased and all that stuff like that. But when you ignore it because either you feel ashamed of it, like, oh my gosh, I have these thoughts, like I cannot have these thoughts, and you shove it down, or you don't want to feel the uncomfortableness, it is your soul trying to nudge you. And it is a sign, it's communication for you, for your learning to actually interpret these things, the messages that these emotions are sending you. Emotions are just guides, pretty much. It is God, it is communication to help you in your life. To fear the darkness is to fear yourself. To try and shut out the darkness is to shut out yourself, and therefore you will shut out God. You are both of these things because God is both of these things. So that's kind of my take on heaven and hell, light and dark. But yes, these energies that are lower vibration, even though they are God, they're different variations of God, they are not your highest. They may not be for your highest good. They may not be your true self, the communication from your true self. It is up to the individual to discern what is for them and what is not for them. Because if you can think of the human body as just a tool that harnesses energy, and all these thoughts and emotions is just energy coming in to the body, you get to choose which thoughts you think, and you get to choose which emotions you feel from said thoughts, and then you get to choose your actions from that point of vibration. The true essence of your soul is love. That is the highest vibration. That is where the most wisdom comes in. That is the highest on the frequency of the universe. Love, joy, compassion. You learn kind of from spirituality is choosing the highest vibration. The highest thoughts, the highest actions out of love is your soul's true essence, which I feel that is very true. But you, as the conscious creator, we have the mind of God, you can choose not to actually take that. You can choose not to take your highest self's road or whatever, because it's up to you, but it's neither good nor wrong. God is not going to condemn you for it. He's just observing it. He, whatever you want to call it, us, is just the observer in the background. Kind of my other thought on heaven and hell, it's like a parent. We always say that we're like children of God, right? So why would God basically condemn his children to hell? You wouldn't do that to your own child, right? So you can look at it kind of like this. In the way that we are kind of here on earth, you drop your kid off at like a playground per se, and then you go off and you sit on a bench. You're not on the playground playing with them, but you're in the background just watching. You're the observer. You're just watching them do their thing on the playground. They experience on the playground. They experience happy emotions, fun. They experience other kids and interact with them. They may get bullied. They may fall down and get hurt. They may experience unpleasant things on the playground, but ultimately they're safe in an environment that was created for them. You, as the parent, are in the background watching, knowing that nothing bad is going to happen to them. Even if it seems like it, even if the child is scared and can't find you, or falls and gets hurt, or something of that nature happens, ultimately everything is okay. Why don't we feel the same way here on earth? It doesn't make sense. We are children of God, basically on a playground of life. And ultimately, no matter what, everything's gonna be okay in the end. No matter what stresses we have, no matter if we, even if we get hurt, we lose people, whatever, no matter what, and even if it's disease, even if we die, where do we go? We just go back to, where we came from, the source. We just go to the real world again. We wake up pretty much from this dream. So it's kind of like we're in no real danger. There's nothing to lose and nothing to really gain but just experience. That's it. So why we think that like we would be condemned or, without God in the same situation is just a lack in faith. And kind of my last thing that I want to touch on is the thought that God is going to come and save you, or just like Christ returning or something of that nature. Or, people thinking that Christ is going to return like a man coming down from the sky or something like that. Or asking for proof of God, things of that nature. I don't believe in it, because if people are thinking like they're waiting for God to come back or Jesus to come back and save them, right? So you think that there's just going to be this man coming down from the sky. Think about it. Would you believe it if it were to happen? Like, if a man really did come down from the sky and proclaim to be the Christ consciousness, the Christ coming, returning, whatever, do you think we would really believe him? Do you think humans would accept that? Or do you think that we would think that it was the devil's work, perhaps? Be deceived? Do you think that we would probably shun him or her out of fear? That's how I feel like. That's just human nature. We wouldn't believe it, even if it were right in front of our faces. We would condemn it. We would fear it. We would pick it apart. We've done it. We've did it with every saint, every ascended master. We've done it with witches. We've killed them. Look at Jesus Christ. And once we would have done it, and they would have done nothing about it, because they are Christed individuals. They are the knowing of God, basically God in a body, pretty much, even though you are too, but they are so much of that higher frequency of God because they have basically no ego. And I'll get a little bit more into this, but that they would only see you through the eyes of God, because that is the vibration running through them, and they would love you unconditionally. And then we, as the humans, would kill them out of fear, like we have shown to do, or shun them, lock them away, or whatever. And then at the end of it all, once they've done nothing and we've crucified them or whatever, then we would turn around and show them love, because we're like, oh, well, I guess, we really did F up, something of that nature. But it is just human nature to not accept love. It is human nature to fear love, because we are conditioned to have conditions around love. We cannot imagine something being unconditional, because no matter what, unfortunately, we were shown love with conditions. But that's what we were taught. Most of us, at least. I really don't know one person that isn't. But Christ returning, it's not going to be as a man. God knows that. It's human nature for that is going to happen. God returns, or Christ returns, as a consciousness. It is a knowing. It is the inner knowing, what I talked about earlier, the experience. And this is what energy work tries to help with. This is what spirituality tries to help with, is all these tools, tarot, crystals, stuff like that, oracle. They're all communication with the mind, and to help you get to experience yourself, to help you slip into meditative states, to deconstruct the ego long enough to experience your true knowing, which is God coming through you. And when you have that experience, you will know your truth. You will tap back into it, and you will understand that you are Christ consciousness in a body. you should watch my video that I made over how you are the universe. I go over how this actually happens with chakras and the energy coming in the body. But essentially, you are always Christ consciousness. It's just however much you're allowing in your body by your thoughts, by your programming, by your current energy. Your thoughts are what is keeping it out of your body, thinking that you're something different. It is vibrations that are keeping it out of your body. Low ones that are anxiety, fear, depression. You cannot have Christ consciousness in you with all of that taking up your thoughts. When you are Christ consciousness, you are a Christed individual, and that's how you act in your life. You make every decision from this point of vibration, and this is how, the subconscious really does truly control your life, because every decision you make out of the current vibration that you're in is dictating your life. You can only make decisions out of the current vibration that you're in. So if you're in fear, you're going to make choices based out of fear, and that will be what drives your life. So when you are a Christed individual, you make decisions out of love. You choose to be the channel of God every single day in every situation. But it is your conscious thought holding these together. Since you are the mind of God, you can think about it as like, your intention is what's holding the energy together. And it's holding it like basically matter and life is created out of conscious thought. We're dreaming ourselves into existence, really. And so when you can shut the brainwaves down long enough, the thoughts down long enough, like you can in meditation, like when we do energy work like Reiki, to provide you a meditative experience, to put you back in touch with your intuition, which is God, your truth. When you experience it, that is when these energies fall away. When we're clearing out energies and energy work, we're getting you back in touch with God, and that is your truth, that's your inner knowing. So that is the Christ consciousness returning to the individual. A man is not coming from the sky. It is consciousness returning to you, your knowing, your experiencing. So that is how it's coming back. And it's coming back for certain individuals. Now, will it come back for everybody? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I think on some kind of a level, it will come back for people. You can see just from that, as God being everything, that you are a piece of God, a drop of water in a sea of energy. You are an essence of Him, or I say Him of it. So you can kind of picture like you as this human body is just a machine harnessing energy that is held together by your conscious thought, because you think you are this thing. I think I am Andy, therefore I am Andy. But underneath it all, at my very, very like core center, you are God, because you were made in the image of God. That's the only way you can exist. All these other energies on top of you are just you thinking you're something different, and that what separates you from God. That's all that it is. So to get back in touch with God, to get to know God, to learn about God, is to get to know yourself. And religion has taught me not to do that. Could be different for everybody. Now, I don't really know per se of like if, God gives us like a little piece of Him, her, it, and assigns us an ego, or if we just like come here and we develop it on our own. Like that movie Soul or something, they like give them the little like their interest or whatever like that. I don't know if astrology has to play into it, of the time that you were created or the energies that play, whatever, don't know. But I do know what is at the core, and I do know ultimately that is, said goal to return to yourself, to ascend, is just coming home within yourself, which is always there with you. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this long talk. It's something that I wanted to make for a while, because it is, like I said, a question I get asked quite a bit about religion and spirituality, and I get shunned quite a bit for it as well, also actually a lot. But I think, you know, it's neither right nor wrong, and sometimes like it is people's path to be, you know, religious, and they don't judge others for their beliefs either, and I'm not one to judge either. I'm just portraying to you my thoughts and what did and didn't work for me. I'll link 2 videos down below. One of them is my spiritual journey. It gives an overview of how Reiki helped me wake up and experience. It's not an in-depth one. I can make an in-depth one though to really go into it. And the other one is how you are the universe. It will kind of explain how the energies work in the body, how the body is a machine harnessing energy, and the power of your intention and thought creating pretty much your life. So I'll link those 2 down below. Go watch it. But I think I've rambled on long enough. I just wanted to go over some theories and kind of just where I just couldn't agree with certain things. But like I said, it's neither right nor wrong. If religion is your path, I have met many Christians that are very, you know, faith-based, and they are Christed individuals, even if they feel that they believe hardcore in the Christian faith. They don't judge, you know, they don't try to sway you or condemn you or, you know, things like that. They are very heart-centered people. So anyway, with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this talk. I hope that it helped shed some light, literally, on, you know, maybe helped you. And if people do condemn you, maybe you can help spread knowledge, the conscious awareness, expansion on some of this stuff of what it is, and hopefully people can be a little bit more open-minded about it, rather than just trying to see, you know, their one way. You have to understand that everybody has a purpose here, and they're only going to understand what they're meant to in this life, what emotional intelligence they have in this life. And you ultimately understand that the same light that is within yourself, within me, is also within that other person. And you have to trust that what that person is experiencing or believing at that point in time, even if it is a really hardcore religion, even if it is something in their life even that you don't agree with, or it's a really rough time, you have to understand or believe that that light is doing it for a reason, that it is within them, guiding them, and you have to allow it to do its work. All you can do is just learn how to communicate with the light within them, show them love, learn how they can accept and see love and show it to them. That's it. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this talk, and I hope you guys liked my little office. It'll be kind of cool to see what this turns into. This was my Reiki room, but obviously I moved my table, have a little backdrop down there, but yeah, I have a desk set up. I'll show you guys in a home series that I'm doing. So anyway, I'm sending you guys all of my light and all my love. I'll see you later.